Hi and welcome back to my workshop. I'm Tony, and as you know, I've just not long finished my Tiger 1 build, and if you've been following me, I've completed my bridge project as well. So I've had a few requests actually, which is brilliant, and really appreciate it, and a few ideas about, like, what tools do you actually need to embark on a project to build one of these Armatech steel tanks. And I thought it was a good idea because actually when I first started, I thought I had all the tools I needed. But as I got into the build, it soon became apparent that there are tools that I should have had, and if I'd had them ahead of building or starting to build it, it would have been a little bit easier. And I've subsequently sort of bought those tools throughout the journey. And so I thought it'd be a good idea, and especially that I've had some requests about it, to run through some of the tools and equipment that you're going to need. So, I mean, the majority of the tools that I'm going to show you are, I would say, essential really for the build. And there's a few things that I felt that would help you, not necessarily essential, but will certainly make your journey a little bit easier. So ahead of receiving my M26 tank, I thought it'd be a good idea just to show you and run through some of the tools that you may need if you're either going to build an older Armatech kit, or if indeed you've signed up to buying one of the new M26 Pershings, and we can probably, hopefully go through that together. So I'm going to reposition the cameras shortly, and I'll go through all the tools, and I hope this is going to be interesting and certainly help you guys, especially the ones that are about to embark on a build similar to what I'm about to do myself. So I'll be back very shortly. So let's talk about some of the, not so much tools, but some of the other things you're going to need to make sure you've got ahead of the build. So if you've followed my build, you'll know that part of the build process is you do need to clean and prep all the parts ahead of painting, but also in doing so, it makes handling the parts really much more sort of simpler. It doesn't leave any residue in your hands when you're working on them. So a couple of things that I'm going to show you first is the cleaning solution that I used, which is this product here. Not sure you can see that in the camera, but this is a very, very good cleaning solution. I opted for a very simple solution that's environmental friendly, and it's non-toxic, etc. And it worked very well, as you've seen in my build videos. And all I did was really just mix this with water, and the instructions are quite clear on the side of the bottle. I had a couple of bowls, one for washing, one for rinsing, and a couple of scrubbing brushes, and all the parts came up really nicely once I'd finished using that. And then even after you've cleaned the parts, one of the things I've always been an advocate of is using a barrier cream, like a hand barrier cream, something such as this. It's an amazing product. It's very easy to apply. You basically just coat your hands in it before you start the work. Obviously not when you're washing products, but basically when you're preparing or working on the model. I don't like using gloves. I think they get in the way, but this stuff is brilliant. You put it on your hands, give them a good general liberal coating on your hands, and at the end of your work session you simply rinse them off and your hands come up like you've just been flower arranging rather than building tanks. But the other couple of things that, ahead of all the tools, one of the things, and I talked about it on my build, was my bench here. This is a fantastic bench, something I bought as a kit, but you can make it your own. Very simple, MDF and just some CLS timber. And again, if you followed me, I would have talked about this bench in one of the very earlier films. Another good thing is a good task light, so something that's articulated and you can move around your works, so you can get into some of the dark corners. You may, if you've got a really nice brightly lit workspace, that's great. I've got reasonable lighting in my workshop, but task lighting such as this, which allows me to articulate around the model, and even has a magnifying ability on the top, which I didn't really need for this exercise. And then I've just got a really decent A2 size cutting board, and all that means is that this becomes my sort of work area, if you like, so I can confine all my pieces within this work area, all the small pieces and bits and bobs, and it allows me just to contain them within this. If you just have them laid over your workbench, it's very easily misplace them or knock them off the bench as you're going through the model. So again, ahead of the tools, some other products you're going to need is a good thread locker. Now this is, these are sort of, it's called Simply. I went for when I first started, I went for this this blue one, which I don't know, I wasn't sure which was the best, but in doing a bit more research and development, I ended up going for this particular product here. Now this size bottle is a 50 ml bottle, and this will do you for the whole build. You won't need any more than that. And in fact, this is the bottle I bought when I first started, other than when I, for first day I used this one, but I sacked that off using this. And this is last, and I've still got enough in there probably to get going with the M26. I will buy another one just in case. I don't want to run out, midway through the build. And this is what they call a high strength permanent one. Having said that, yes, they're permanent, but don't panic if you start building this tank and you're using thread locker. If you make a mistake or you have to undo a fixing, it's simply using a hot air gun to soften the adhesive and allows you to undo the fixing without doing any damage to the fixing. And then you're going to need a lot of super glue. It's mad to think that you've got to use super glue for a metal model, but there are plenty of components, especially on the Tiger, where the super glue was required, when I glued in the bearings and lots of other elements that you saw during the course of the build. I'm assuming, and I haven't received the M26 yet and I haven't seen the instructions, I'm assuming that this is an absolute must-have to before you build your kit. And I think I went through about 3 of these on my Tiger build, so be prepared. I think it was 3, sorry, but it may be only 2, but I'd start off and get 2 of these. And this is, what size is this? This is a 10 gram, 10 gram, again widely available on the internet, quite reasonably priced, and certainly a must-have. And then the only other product that I used was the dry lube, which it was for the gearing mechanism for the drive case. I don't know if you recall that, because Armatech actually asks you to use dry lube. I think they've moved on from using conventional grease. And I don't know why, other than I think that with grease, how I've dealt with it in the past, it does and it can pick up very micro particles and eventually, just becomes gritty, whereas this doesn't have the same issues. So that was that. Then an absolute essential for the build is, because of the multitude of fixings you have, you're going to need a little socket set, something such as this. This has got a nice little ratchet, and I've used that. If you follow the build, you'll see me using this, especially building the hull and the construction of all the wheels. But as well as that, what I did is I went out and I've got, now this is something I bought. I mean, I had this set already, but I suddenly realized I'm going to need some opposing sockets as well. So obviously you've got, you're operating on 2 sides of the wheel, and you're going to need to tighten and hold, and these are a really neat little set, and they range from, I think it's 4 mil, so 4 mil socket, like that, really nicely manufactured, quite cheap to buy on the internet, really nicely knurled, so you get a lot of good grip on these. They feel nice in your hand, very comfortable to use. And I've got this 4 mil, I've got a 5.5 mil, I've got a 7 mil, and I've got an 8 mil. And pretty much that's all you're going to need to do well, certainly what I needed for the Tiger. So I have these plus my socket set with a range of socket fixings and sizes, but it's a really nice, comfortable, small set rather than using a larger ratchet set. Really nice, comfortable in the hand, and this is manufactured by, by the way, I'm not plugging these, I'm just letting you know, if you want to buy these, this is who it's made by. No one has supplied me anything for this free of charge. I've had to buy it all myself, but I'm just trying to show you that it can be done with these tools. And if you want to, I've tried and tested these tools. I can't comment about other ones, but tried and tested, they work brilliantly. So they're the socket sets, and you will need those, and I definitely think you're going to need to invest, if you haven't got some, invest in a set of these, and I also think that a little socket set like this would be invaluable. I mean, there is a multitude of hex fixings that you're going to have, I'm guessing on the M26 as much as it was on the Tiger. Then I've got one of the invaluable set of tools are your Allen keys. I've got a full range here that goes from 2mm all the way up to 10. These are brilliant because you are going to need the full range of these, not probably the full range, but a large degree of these, especially on the Tiger with the torsion bar system. You had to apply a lot of strength and a lot of pressure, and these are so comfortable in the hand, and you can get a lot of pressure with these. What I really like is the fact that they've got the ball joint on the end. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. And that allows you, so some of the angles you're going to be working at, you're going to be working at an angle, and you can still operate the Allen key as intended because of the way this is designed. Now these are really, really strong. They're made by a company called S&R. Again, widely available on the internet and not that expensive. Now I had a set of Allen keys to start with, your conventional block set, but I just found them awkward to use and fiddly, and also when you're trying to put a lot of pressure and get a lot of torque onto the fixing, having something like that fits in your hand really comfortably like that, it allows you to get so much power behind it to get the fixing done up. And also I think that with some of the Allen key fixings out there, you have to be really careful, especially the smaller ones like this. If you put it under too much pressure, this shaft can twist. That's not the case with this so far, but these ones you just have to be a little bit more sensible with. But as well as that, what I did is I went out and I got myself a set of screwdriver style Allen keys for the smaller fixings. And these range from 1.5mm up to 3mm, so it's 1.5, 2, 2.5 and 3mm. And these are brilliant for the smaller fixings, and something that using a screwdriver, you can, it's easily a turn rather than the ratchet type of motion that you do with an Allen key, whereas these are, you can spin this, and it's very brilliant tools. And again, I use that heavily for the construction of the wheels for my Tiger One. So this, I would say, is not an essential set, but it's definitely something that I would recommend that will help and enhance your experience of the build. So as far as Allen keys, that's all you will need. So I'll put those away for now. The next thing you're going to need is a really good set of long nose or pointed long nose, well, I call them long nose pliers, and these are invaluable for getting into the awkward places that, especially somebody like me who's got big old sausage fingers, some of the tight spaces. For instance, when I was doing the turret, I used this to hold the nut to allow me to be able to pass the fixing through the hole, and so on and so forth. And then a really good set of cutters. Now I've got modelling cutters, but they weren't man enough, especially when I was doing the tracks and we were cutting all the split pins for the tracks. This little set of cutters, phenomenal, and again really comfortable in the palm of your hand, and it's made by the same people that made the socket set here, which is Magnuson. So they're essential tools, 100%. So let me come on to some of the tools that, again, I'd probably classify as going to make your life easier. So when I started the build, I did not have a deburring tool, and I suddenly realized that actually I'm going to need this, because I was using lots of little modeling files and everything else, which I'll show you in a moment. But I went out and invested in this deburring tool, and it was probably the best investment of the whole build. Great tool, very simple to use, and makes your life a lot easier. Now, of course, some of the components that you get from Armatech, most of the components you get are manufactured to the highest possible standard. But just in anything, in process of manufacturing, you'll always get a little bit of rough edges, etc. And deburring the edges really helps. And in fact, I actually enjoyed it. It actually gives me, it provides a bit more of a challenge rather than just out of the box like a massive Meccano set. So I actually liked some of the challenges and some of the fabrication or minor works that you have to do to the kit in order to make it work. So that, to me, I would have put it under initially a nice to have tool, but I actually think it's an essential tool for you to have as part of the build. And then my trusted little mallet, my mini mallet. Now this has got a rubber end and it's got a hard acrylic end. I've had this for some time now, and it's a fabulous little tool. It fits nicely in the palm of your hand, nicely weighted. It's not going to do too much damage if you miss the target. And these are interchangeable. You can take these off, and it comes, when you buy these, it comes with a spare set. Just a brilliant tool, and so easy to use. And again, I've used this throughout the build, as you would have seen. A bigger mallet than that I think is going to be troublesome, or a smaller one, and don't use one of those pin hammers. You want something like this, sort of nice weight to it, nicely held in the hand, good grip, a quality made tool, but again, reasonably priced. So let's talk about a couple of the tools that I think are going to be something that you don't necessarily need, but I think will definitely help you in the journey. First of all, these magnetic trays, absolutely brilliant. Again, I know you don't need them, you could put them in plastic pots, but with the amount of fixings that you've got and the amount of work in, you know, with the sort of components that you're working with, it's very easily, inadvertently, to knock off. If you've got a plastic pot with all fixings, knock it off your workbench and it's all over the floor. You know, these things are just brilliant. I've got one here which has got loads of fixings in, and you can see just, you know, how, let me just, I can't even pick the one up. But you know, so there you go. So it's just magnetized. So all of your kit, you know, these two areas here, but the whole tray I think effectively is magnetized. I don't know if you can see that. There's my little nut. So, you know, if you were to knock this off the workbench, it's not a disaster. And just brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. And these are available. I've got a small one here with some of the fixings that I still need to, when I run my Tiger, I've already pre-painted some of the fixings and I just put them on if I'm going to go for a long run. But they're in here safely stowed away with my magnetic tray. Again, I would say that this is not an essential part, but I would recommend it because it could save you a lot of time if you ever dropped a whole pack of fixings over. And then we've got a couple of little tools. This is a magnetic telescopic thing. So if you drop, now I don't know about you, but I suffer from back problems because I had a motorcycle accident many years ago. And if you've dropped something on off the workbench, you know, having something like that to be able to pick it up off the floor, here we go. You can see that just on there, is brilliant, and it just saves, so I can just put that on the floor, pick that up, got it back. And also once you've start building the tank and you've got the hole built up and everything's, you know, and if you drop something inside the tank, and again if you've got big old sausage fingers like mine, it's quite fiddly to get the thing out. One of these in, pick it up, solved. So again, this is not an essential tool, but it's a tool I would recommend if you can, or if you haven't got one, it's worth having one. This has got a light on it as well. I don't think the light works on it anymore, but yeah, that side, brilliant tool. And then just got a couple of sets of tweezers, quite handy. Sometimes for some of the smaller fixings, you don't need a whole array of these, just a couple of sets of tweezers, something like that. Just helps again with the smaller fixings. Most people have got them, if not, just raid your wife's makeup bag. And I've got this tiny little, very nice, basically just a very simple thing with a rod on it with a very narrow point, and that just sometimes allows you to manipulate fixings into position if they're really small, and you just, instead of using your fingers or the pliers, just having something with a very hard point on it like that just allows you, I don't know if you can see that, allows you to manipulate a fixing onto your target surface. And then another thing that I find, again, it's probably not essential, but it makes life a lot easier for you when you're building it, especially when you've got something like sectional holes like the Tiger is. Having clamps to be able to clamp your work together while you're working, especially if you're working on your own, they're just invaluable to me. I just think, as you followed the build, you would have seen me using these throughout the build, and I wouldn't be without them. But I guess you can do without it, but to me, no, it's a must-have. Another thing when we're talking about clamps is a bench vise, which is out of shot at the moment, but if you followed my build, you've seen me using it. I would say that is an essential part of any tank build, because you're going to need to clamp parts up. What you will need, if you haven't got them, are these magnetic jaw protectors. It just protects your work. There's a neoprene or plasticized surface to prevent it damaging your work. Now, I didn't buy these as part of the early stages of my Tiger build, so I was using blocks of wood and heavy duty material just to sort of protect the target piece I was working on. But since I've bought a set of these, again, very inexpensive on the internet. They're magnetic. You see that? They're magnetic, and they just slide onto the jaws of your vise brilliantly. So these are definitely recommended. And then the only other thing that I would recommend is a set of files. Now this set of files I've had for some time, but again they are available, they're not that expensive, and I've got everything from the large scale traditional file to the half round file to circular files to all the smaller modelling files and the detailing files. These to me are an essential part of the build, because there are certain parts, like using the deburring tool, sorry, there are certain parts of the tank that need to be filed down to be able to, you know, put components to sort of to slide through each other. It's just a manufacturing process, that's all it is. And I'm not criticizing Armatech at all, because their kits are phenomenal, but and actually I kind of think that this adds to the journey and adds to the enhancement. So a good set of files are, I would say, essential. So as far as tools are concerned, I think that's about it. You don't need any more. I mean, I have used my driver occasionally, just to ream out holes and what have you, but you know, this is not needed, so we can put that away. But just because I know you've seen it in my videos, if you've been following me, you're using this, but you don't need this. This was just me speeding up the process of like reaming out or enlarging holes to allow other components to pass through. So yeah, so as far as tools are concerned, that's about all you're going to need. The only other thing I would suggest you do is do some research. Whatever tank you're going to buy, most of the time there are really good research or reference books out there to help you, and yes, you get the instructions from Armatech, but there's nothing like having a really good reference book in front of you. You know, the Tiger, I had a really good reference book. My M26 Pershing, I found a book that I think is going to help me, and this book is this by the same author as the Tiger book that I had, and it's a phenomenally detailed journey of a tour around. Let me just pick that up. A tour around the M26. So during my build, if I'm not sure about something, especially when it comes to the detailing aspect of it, it's got everything in here that you're going to need. Really good array of photographs and notes. I mean, I can already see some of the elements that I've seen on the Armatech fabrication or manufacturing videos they've released, and I can already make a reference to them on these pictures. I mean, this is phenomenal. I mean, having a picture like that, all it does is just cross-checks the instructions that you get from Armatech, and hopefully you're able to just clarify that is the case. So great book, really smart book, you know, lots of details, reasonably affordable. I think this was about £15, something like that. It could be the best £15 I've spent. And actually, you can start seeing some of the paint marks or the markings on the tank. So which that leads me to. So I'll come on to that in a moment. But this book is what I've chosen as my reference book. I've gone ahead and bought that. I'm just so excited about building the M26. I'm reading this almost back to front when I've got time. But I also found, and it's really worth bringing this up, because I found this amazing guy on eBay of all places. It's called Nooster Direct. The guy's called Paul, one of the nicest people you'll ever deal with on eBay, I'm sure. But he is a specialist in stencil work, and he does stencils for full-size military vehicles, reenactment vehicles, that sort of thing, all the way down to 1:6 scale. And whatever you want, he'll make for you. So I contacted him, and I only found him on eBay. And I contacted him and I said, look, I've got an M26 Pershing tank I'm about to build, or I'm starting to build, and way ahead of the game. I guess I'm well early to this, but I just want to try and get as many things ready and sorted before I do the build, because I don't want to get into the same situation where I'm with the Tiger and get to a point I'm thinking, oh gosh, I need to find decals, I need to do this, I need to do that. I wanted, like, you know, everything ready for me to go. Anyway, I found this guy, explained to him what I was going to do, and he said, yeah, no problem. What tank, what markings do you want? Which seems like a straightforward enough question, but it isn't, because obviously I wanted to reflect some history. And there's an M26 Pershing tank that's very famous called Eagle 7, and that was involved in a very famous battle. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was involved with a Tiger. So it complements my Tiger beautifully, hopefully, when it's built. So I went out and did some research, and I sent him what armour division it was in, and the reference number for the tank, and he's come back with these just incredibly beautiful stencils. all with the unique number of the tank and the regiment. Oh, that's the tank number there for the Eagle 7, and what division it was in. I've got the main hull stars, the turret stars. He's even gone down to, I've asked him to do these little things called lift here, which will be where the crane lift areas are. Let me see that. Now these are what he calls his single-use stencils, but you can feel that they're really well made. They're like a really nice plastic or acetate or something like that, but they feel really smart, and I've got a feeling that they're going to stick to the tank painted surface very well. So the idea is that once I've got the tank painted, I'll then apply these and then get my airbrush and airbrush over the top of them and then peel these off, and if I can reuse them I will. If not, I'm not too worried. And then you've got the bigger ones which will go on the front of the tank or the side of the tank. So everything you're going to need for the full set of markings, Paul's done. He also does the multi-use or multiple use stencils, which are these. I'm not sure if you can see. There we go. And these are designed that you can use them time and time again, and a slightly thicker material. But what a gentleman. So if you're stuck for marking, especially for US type markings, go to this guy. Big shout out to Nooster Direct and for Paul. And the service is incredible. I ordered them, I don't know, on say the Thursday. They arrived Saturday, and really, really well priced, and just a really good guy to deal with, and somebody who understands, you know, guys like us, right? So that's that. So that's it for this session. I hope that's actually helped. I certainly know that if there was a video like this that I could have seen ahead of me building my Tiger, I would have watched it, because it certainly would have saved me some time and would have prepared me better for the build. So I really hope it's been informative and of interest to you. I really hope that you're going to come back and follow me on my M26 build. I'm super excited about that. And if you're going to join me, I know there's a few of you out there that have actually gone ahead and ordered one of those Pershing tanks yourself, and it'd be great to do the journey together. And I hope that, again, you can continue supporting my channel. If you like this, thumbs up and subscribe, and thank you so much for all of your support. I'll see you soon.